Hey, this is Dr. Corey Glenn with Blue Sky Bio, and I'm going to be showing in this video today the entire process of going from planning an implant on a patient, designing a surgical guide using the wizard and the software, creating that guide, and then actually placing the implant. And then beyond that, I'll even show the restorative workflow. And so, one of the cool things that Blue Sky has introduced recently is a scannable healing abutment. This thing is great because you can simply place that at the time of surgery, and then when it's time to restore, you don't even have to change components and put on a scan body. You can literally just scan the healing abutment, and then I'll show doing that, and then taking that into a design software, designing the crown, fabricating it, delivering it, the whole 9 yards. And so this video, I'll end up chopping it up into some component, smaller videos as well that maybe just focus on design or just talk about the scannable healing abutment. But I thought it was important to have one video that really shows this entire process from A to Z. And so if you've got questions about the workflow for planning implants, making guides, making restorations, this video is for you. So let's go ahead and jump into this case, and we're going to start by diagnosing and planning our implant position and designing the guide. We're going to go ahead and plan this case in the wizard mode. Okay, so when you open Blue Sky Plan, click on Implant Planning and Surgical Guides. Now, if you've got a simple onesie twosie implant case, you're not real familiar with the software, you're not going to go off script and do, different weird things or advanced things, you can use the wizard, and you would launch that by choosing one or two implant case. We're going to be importing an intraoral scan, so model STL is fine, and then go ahead and tell it the kit that you'll be using. There's many kits in here, but we're going to use the Blue Sky Bio fully guided kit. And to start, it's going to want you to import the CT scan. So just grab the root folder of that raw DICOM. Now it's going to give you a little bit of a preview of the CT data, and this gives you a chance to limit your field of view. And so there's really nothing going on back in the throat or the spine that alters my treatment plan. I don't need to open this entire volume. So usually I'm going to just open the area of interest, and then I'll click OK. And as you see, it has brought in the CT scan. It has already automatically mapped the nerves. If this was a mandibular case, I would really scrutinize those, but we're doing upper left premolar. And so really no need to do that. This looks good. I'll click next. And now it's prompted us to go ahead and bring in the intraoral scan. And so I'm going to bring in the upper intraoral scan. We want to tell it that it's a maxilla. It's going to analyze that and then go ahead and stitch this as best it can. And you want to verify that you've got a good stitch. And so any of these windows we can enlarge, we can look at that outline, and I can see that this is really tightly adapted. And so the stitch looks good. I'll look at it in the cross section usually as well. And right on our edentulous site right here, I can see that we've got great adaptation. Looks like it's wrapping the teeth, so we're good to go on this. Go ahead and click next, and you'll move to the next part of it. And that's going to be to do the prosthetic planning. Remember, implants need to be planned prosthetically backwards. And so we're going to let the AI generate a proposed tooth here. Just click on the tooth that's being treated. This is number 12. And then if you want to, you can go ahead and select a proposed implant. Now, you may not always know exactly what size, but generally for me, if I've got a molar, premolar, a 4.3 by 10 is going to be my starting spot. And I also like to go ahead and put on a custom abutment. And this just gives me a better visual indicator of where to, position the implant for the ideal screw access hole. And so a diameter of 3, that's normally what a screw access hole would be. And now I'm going to click OK. We're just going to click on the site. And as you see here, it has gone ahead and proposed a tooth, which looks really good. And then it's also going to go ahead and drop the implant in directly underneath that. Now, if we want to alter this tooth, we can. I don't think it's that critical that we do it here. But if you wanted to do that, you can. I think this looks great. So we're going to go ahead and click next. And now I can go ahead and tweak my implant position. Now, I accidentally put an angle on that abutment. So I'm going to just tell it to replace abutment, and we'll go ahead and stick 0 degrees on there. All right, so now position your implant where you want it. In a case like this, I'm going to probably go for about equicrestal on the palatal. I want to leave 1.5 millimeters of bone on the buccal if possible, and that's putting it a little bit subcrestal on the buccal. Our prosthetic emergence looks great here, but I'm a bit closer to that canine root than I would like to be, so I'm going to tilt this backwards just a bit. And just that little minor change is all that I would do here. Give it one more spin around, make sure you like it, make sure you like your emergence position in your 3D window, and once you do, go ahead and click Next. So the software is identifying the teeth. It's going to go ahead and propose a guide outline. And here's that proposed guide outline. Looks great. If you want to tweak this, you can. You can move these nodes around. I'm going to just go with this. Like that one's a little bit deep, so I'm going to bring that up. This is also where you could add windows. So if I wanted to create a little window, I could right click the model and tell it to add a window, and it will generate this box form. And wherever that box is positioned, it's going to create a window in the guide. So we're only looking to expose cusp tips, and we don't have to do the entire tooth either. I probably would just do the corner of that lateral, and that would be plenty to verify that I'm seated. I also know it's going to create a little bit of a clean out right here for your handpiece to get. And so that by default, I'll get some windows on the adjacent teeth here. So this looks good. Do be aware that if you're using the wizard, it's going to plan it for a metal guide sleeve. At least in this current version, the upcoming version will give you the option of going with or without a sleeve. But now it's just generating the guide. And here is the completed guide, as you can see. That looks great. And so now we'll go ahead and do the final little steps here, create a drill report and such, and tell it where we want to save this. And so I'm going to just save this in my downloads. Now, if you didn't have a printer or you wanted to outsource some portion of this, you can. It's going to bring up this window for LabPronto where you can do that. I don't need to do that. I'm going to print it myself. And so I'll just close that order. And then it's going to automatically generate a drill report. And so I'm going to tell it where I want to save my drill report. I'll just do that in my downloads as well. And that generates a PDF, which could be printed. I usually will print these and stick them on the unit behind the patient. And it's going to have a couple images that just give you a quick reference for looking at while you're in the procedure. All right, that's done. When I click next, that should finalize the case. What it's done now is it's gone ahead to the Blue Sky website and it's auto-populated a cart which has the kit here. I already have a kit. I don't need to buy that, so I can get rid of that. It would automatically put in the appropriate cylinder. And so you can see this is tube 524 504-4L. That's 5.24 outer diameter, 5.04 inner diameter, and then 4 on the vertical length. All right, and then here's the implant as well. So maybe all you need is the implant, or if you have that, you could just X out of all of this, but it makes it really easy to order your parts. And then with that done, if I close the wizard, you can see that we're just back to the home screen of Blue Sky Plan, where you could now work manually, or you could just save the case and go ahead and finalize it here. So the only thing left to do would be to print this case. And so if I open up my 3D printer software, I can tell it what size build plate. I'm using surgical guide resin. I want to do a 10 micron, I'm sorry, 100 micron layer thickness. And now we can bring in the file. Remember, it auto saved everything into my downloads. I'm going to go ahead and choose this guide and orient this with the intaglio facing up. You don't want to have supports built into your surgical guide. If you want to alter the position of this, you can do so. I like to have the intaglio facing up, and I like to get that guide too, where it's just directly perpendicular to the build plate. And if you're doing one, why not do two in case one breaks or you lose one? And now we would be ready to check if it's got any overhangs. It will. It's going to need to have some supports. So as you can see, the thumbs down, we're going to generate supports. And now that it's had everything supported, you can see we've got a green thumbs up. and we would slice this and send it to the printer. Okay, so we've got our guide printed, and we're going to go ahead and just do a mock surgery on this case. And so here's the model. Now it's not going to be exactly like real life because obviously I've just arbitrarily kind of removed the gingiva here, and so this just represents bone. So in a real case you would lay a flap, obviously. But the first thing you always want to do is verify the fit of your surgical guide. And so when I seat that completely, you can see in this window right here that those cusp tips are fully indexed. We should also see it right here. Everything is completely seated and the guide's fully engaged. And so with that, we would be ready to go ahead and do our drilling protocol. Now, if you have an uneven ridge or you're placing a large diameter implant, oftentimes you might want to use the bone profiler first. This being relatively flat and not going in super deep, I don't think that's going to be necessary, and so I'm jumping straight to the 2x6 drill. And so we'll just go through the drilling sequence. So this is not a true implant motor, so bear with me on the simulated nature of this, but hopefully we can get it to go all the way to depth here. Now, if you ever do run into the scenario where it looks like you should be bottomed out and yet your drill stop is not seating, that would be an indication that yes, you do probably need to use that profiler. So I'm actually going to go back and do that. I didn't think I would need to, but it's never a bad idea to just use this automatically. The only time I generally won't use this is when it's an immediate or an anterior and I'm not wanting to profile out a significant amount of bone right at the crest. This is going to profile about a 5mm diameter. And so now I'd be willing to bet you that going back with this same drill, you would see that it does go all the way to seat. And sure enough, it does. All right, you can see that the drill is completely indexed. So that's 2x6. Remember, we're placing a 4.3 by 10mm implant. And so I'll usually work my way diagonal. So if I just use 2x6, now I would go with the 2.5 by 8. All right, so a little bit up in length and a little bit up in diameter. And this should feed right into your previous hole. And it's generally not going to require a lot of effort to get down. All right, so that's 2.5 by 8, and now we are at 3.0 by 10. So we're not going to go any longer than this. A 10mm is our final length, and depending on the case, you might opt to just stop at this drill. Right, you might want to undersize the osteotomy. And so you can see here we've got our osteotomy created in the site. And depending on how the bone felt, if this were a real patient, I might opt to undersize this, particularly in the maxilla. And given that this is foam inside of a 3D printed model, I'm also going to opt to undersize this. Make sure that there's no debris remaining, and then go ahead and take your implant out of the package. And so now we're ready to place the implant. And so here I've got a 4.3 by 10 implant, and I've got this on the variable height driver. And so again, you're going to go into the osteotomy through the guide, and with the variable height driver, the very first line that you'll come to, that's the standard 8.5mm offset. Okay, so I need to change my direction here so I can begin cranking this in. So that's the standard 8.5 offset. So if you've just placed your implant in the software without modifying the guide tube, you didn't have to raise it up or anything, then that 8.5 line would be where you need to stop. And so you'll see I'm about to make the last little bit of a turn, and when that is even with the top of the implant, then right there we are at full depth. All right. Hopefully you can see the implant now. And then as a final step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually place on a scannable healing abutment. So these are the new Blue Sky Bio scannable healing abutments. Hopefully you can see that. The beauty to these is that they allow you to just place this healing abutment one time. Now, if you were going to one stage this and place a healing abutment, then all the better if you can never have to remove that until it's time to deliver that final restoration. And so these are indexed, meaning that they've got the little hex on them that the implant would have, just like a standard abutment. And so you want to make sure that that seats in there fully, and then we're going to go ahead and drive this in, and we'll just go 2-finger tight. And so what's great about this is that now, let's say that it's been 3 months and the patient's all healed, and now we're ready to do the restoration. Well, I don't have to go and remove a healing abutment, put in a scan post and all this. This is the scan post, all right? So there's geography on the top of this that the scanner picks up, and that's all built into the Exocad library. So you don't have to go removing components, messing up that soft tissue attachment. So we've got our healing abutment in, and you want to place one that's going to just be above the level of the gingiva. That would be about ideal, as you can see right there. You don't want it sticking way up, and you don't want it so short that it's going to have the gingiva grow over the top of it. All right, so I'm going to go and scan this now. Okay, so we're going to pretend that that implant has healed for 3 to 4 months, and now we're ready to do the restoration. Remember, we've used the scannable healing abutment, and so I'm using the Shining 3D Aoral Scan 3, the wireless version. I'm going to create a new order and designate what tooth it's for. It's going to be for a crown. We'll just put demo as our patient, and we'll go ahead and save and scan this. Alright, so we're going to do the upper scan first. Remember, this is the arch, which has the scannable healing abutment on it, as you can see right there. So we want to make sure we pick up all of that geometry on the top of the scannable healing abutment. Remember, that is what the software is going to stitch to during the design. And so, typically it's just going to be the top, millimeter of the tooth that's sticking out of the gingiva here, but you want to make sure you capture all of that really well, as well as the proximal contacts. All right, that looks good. And you'll tell it the areas that you want to make sure have the highest definition. Obviously, that would be our scannable healing abutment. I always choose the contacts too, just because I want to make sure that we got really good accuracy there. And now we're ready to do the lower arch. All right, that looks good. And finally, we're going to capture our buccal bite. So we would have the patient bite down. Again, one of the beauties of using a scannable healing abutment is, unlike a long, tall impression post where the patient can't bite into occlusion, this, you don't even have to remove anything. It's already in place. They can bite down, and so capturing your buccal bite is really simple. And as you can see, everything is stitched in place. And so we're done with that. We're going to edit our scans, save them, and then export those and pull them into our design software. Alright, so we've done the intraoral scan with the scannable healing abutment. Again, these things are great because you don't have to go changing a bunch of components. And so just by scanning that healing abutment, we've got the data that we need to now create this restoration. So here I'm in Exocad, and for my prescription, I'm going to designate tooth number 12 as an anatomic crown. We'll do it in zirconia, or we could do printed, whatever you're going to do. I'm going to print this. We do want to tell it that this will be screw retained. I usually will just make the scan body be in the main scan, but that's up to you. And then we'll click OK. And then we'll designate the opposing. And now we're ready to design. All right, so we're going to bring in the models. So here's my intraoral scan with that scannable healing abutment. Here's the lower jaw. We'll indicate our path of draw. And now we select the library part. So, these being new, you'll have to make sure you've got the most recent Exocad libraries, which have these in there. But we're going to choose Biomax, which is what this implant is. And then, again, you've got to tell it exactly which healing abutment. The one that I used for that, which is premolar, is a 4.8 by 5. So the 5 is the height, 4.8 is the diameter. And then how are we going to restore this? So I'm going to use the Blue Sky Bio 1.8 millimeter collar tie base for the narrow platform Biomax. So that's this guy right here. And so now you can see it's going to tell you where to click on the scan body to stitch this up. And so we're going to go opposite this right on that ridge. When I click there, you see that it just grabbed that and it stitched it into place. Oops, knocked it off. And it'll auto stitch really well. And now you can see that that looks like it's a great stitch. Everything is lined up. If you look here, all the dots are in the same place. So you just want to make sure that that's exactly right, that there's no discrepancies in your stitches. This would be, again, where it's important that when you choose the height of that scannable healing abutment, don't go too short, because if your gingiva grows over it, obviously that's going to obscure all of the features on the top of this that it's using to identify. So that looks great. I'm going to click Next. The emergence profile is already going to be defaulted to the tie base margin. Click Next. And now it has auto-generated a tooth. I'm going to look at this. Looks like the anatomy is a little sharper than what that adjacent tooth is, so I'm going to flatten this down some. All right, that looks better. We'll go with the default abutment bottom. And now we can start doing our tooth shaping. And so I'm going to fatten this up a little bit down at the emergence. I'd rather fatten it a little and then smooth things out to make sure I've got a really nice profile. You see how that's a bit rough? I don't love that. So looks a little skinny in these areas, so I'm going to fatten that up as well. And then I just try to look around at the tooth and make sure that the contours are correct. So as I look down the barrel of these cusps, I can see that that cusp is a little bit further out. I want to bring it in line with the adjacent. The buckle looks a little bit deficient, and so I'll pull that out just slightly. And again, I am going to smooth this back. But we're already starting to look pretty good. I want to make sure I've got a proximal contact on both sides. I do. And then I might fill in this mesial just a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and smooth everything out to the proper emergence profile that I'm wanting to achieve. And again, I'm always kind of looking back and forth. Again, that cusp looks like it's a bit far out for me. Bring that over slightly. Alright, I like that better. Flatten that cervical a bit. And I think that's a decent looking crown. I'm going to hide this and just make sure I don't have any roughness on the proximals. Now obviously here I'm doing this on a kind of a demo model, which doesn't have the gingiva, and so I would be taking more care to properly contour it to the gingiva if that was present. But obviously here it's all cut out for the sake of this demo, and so I won't worry too much about that. All right, I like that. Click next. We're going to cut in the static occlusion. We're going to cut in the proximal contacts. And now when I click next, it should let us do the screw hole, and then we'll be finished. So the defaults in the library are going to be ideal for that screw hole. We'll click next. And there's our final crown. And you can see it with the antagonist. No hyperocclusion. Everything looks great. And so this is ready to be exported and then printed or milled, however you choose to do it. I'm going to print this, so let's export this. And that's it for the design. Now we're ready to fabricate. So I just wanted to insert in here because I do realize there are a lot of people that may not have a printer. Obviously, if you have your own mill, you could certainly mill your own crown. But many people may not want to make the restoration themselves. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't point out LabPronto is a lab-related service that Blue Sky Bio has, where we have partner labs familiar with our products, our parts and pieces, and all the workflows and everything. This is an excellent resource to outsource any portion of this workflow that you would like to do. Okay, so you may like to do the guides, but you don't want to mess with the restoration. So if I go to labpronto.com, I can click on prosthetic restorations, and let's go to crowns. All right, so you could delegate out the crown design for $19. Once you have that crown designed, you could also have them go ahead and mill this. So $99 for a zirconia crown, and it's, again, all digital. It's very fast. And again, these are people that work with our parts and pieces. They're genuine pieces. It's going to be an excellent service. And so I just wanted to throw in here before I showed the actual creating the crown in a printed restoration that this is an option for you as well. Okay, let's go ahead and print this crown. So I'm going to use the small build plate. This is going to be, I'll use the Shining 3D crown and bridge resin. And we'll just go with, 0.1 millimeter layer thickness. You can get a little better resolution. If I was really doing this, I'd probably go 0.05, but this will work fine. Load the file. There's our crown. Want to have that screw hole facing upwards so I don't get supports built into that. And let's go ahead and just do 2 of them while we're at it. Support both of these. And looks like we're good to go. Let's go ahead and print them. So printing these crowns took about 20 minutes, and here you see that I am removing that from the printer. You can see both those crowns that we did are on the build plate. And so your final step would be to remove these from the build plate, clean off the excess resin, cure it, and then you would go ahead and bond this to your tie base. And as you can see, here is the final restoration. I've got one of those, the extra one that's still on the supports there. But this would just be bonded to your tie base with the resin cement. Same thing if you get an Emax or a zirconia crown milled. But this makes for a really great restoration. And again, I hope that it was helpful to see this entire process all the way through, from the planning of a implant and creating a guide to using Scannable Healing abutment and just really appreciating all the way through. This is something that the average doc can do. It's not that complex. And once again, you do have LabPronto as a resource to delegate out any or all portions of this process if you don't want to do it. So anyway, I hope you found that helpful, and I'll talk to you later.